Lawbreeze and Gentlegrams, in today's episode of Lawbree in Gentleland, the legal filing freaky frontliner of the egregious OVHO organization has finally faced the frightening reality that retargeting his rage of the rap battle to his record label rather than the reduced height, hobbit-sized, small-statured, sharpshooting assassin was an atrocious act as Aubrey, the awfully overly affectionate, culturally cosplaying Canadian maple syrup mob boss Freaky Phony Montana will now revisit the most embarrassing year of his life, the 2024 Kendrick battle, but it won't be in the booth, it will be in the building of a New York courthouse as UMG has submitted their 30-page document calling to dismiss this BS lawsuit, and they are bringing the most insane receipts, sources, and stories to show that Drake being a prom queen predator was a rumor long before the bell-bottom bone crusher battled the balding, bearded, belligerent BBL buffoon. So let's go through this entire document UMG has filed. We'll see how bad this looks for Drake as he dukes it out with them in court, and we'll ultimately revisit this battle through the lens of court documents because they really go through the whole battle line by line, song for song. This document is insane, absolutely insane. But before we get into it, like and subscribe to ease my pain. So, Lawbreeze and Gentlegrams, it seems as though UMG is flipping the intro of Drake's lawsuit and putting their own spin on a similar concept because Drake kicked off his lawsuit with a direct quote from the CEO of UMG, Lucien Grange, who was defending himself against an allegation made against him, basically implying that Lucien was at a Diddy party, and Lucien denied these claims, saying that one false allegation can ruin your reputation. So Drake used that quote in his lawsuit to emphasize that, just like Lucien saying, the accusation of him being at a Diddy party can destroy his reputation, the accusations Kendrick was making that UMG published in Not Like Us can also ruin Drake's reputation. But boy, oh boy, did UMG come with the receipts. So they kick off their motion to dismiss this lawsuit with a quote from Drake, similar to how he did with a quote from Lucien Grange. But they're not quoting nothing Drake said about Diddy. Instead, they're quoting a Lawbree lullaby track from 15 years ago, the song Successful. UMG's court document kicks off with the quote, "Yeah, I want it all, that's why I strive for it. Diss me, you'll never hear a reply for it." It's so funny that Drake said this all the way back in 2009, and now 15 years later, it's being used against him over a lawsuit that he filed over a diss song that he asked for. So after the quote, the document kicks off stating, plaintiff, one of the most successful recording artists of all time, lost a rap battle that he provoked and in which he willingly participated. Instead of accepting the loss like the unbothered rap artist that he often claims to be, he has sued his own record label in a misguided attempt to salve his wounds. Plaintiff's complaint is utterly without merit and should be dismissed with prejudice. So, already starting off this lawsuit making some insane claims, essentially stating that Drake is mad that he lost this battle, that's why he's suing, but it was a battle he provoked. Now, can you say he provoked it? 100% you could. Did he start it? Not really. Kendrick responded to First Person Shooter with "like that," but First Person Shooter wasn't intended as a diss song from Drake and J. Cole. But after "like that," we got Push-Ups where Drake said drop, 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 drop and give me 50, or Taylor Made when he said not this time you following through, or talk about me liking young girls. But anyways, like I said, this whole document really walks us through all the events that transpired throughout the beef, and it's all done through UMG's perspective on the beef and on Drake, so it's really hilarious. So let's continue. They introduced the situation saying in the spring of 2024, two of the most popular recording artists in the world, Kendrick and Drake, engaged in a high-profile rap battle. Over the course of approximately 2 months, they exchanged increasingly vitriolic, I don't know if that's how you pronounce that, and incendiary, I could be mispronouncing words all throughout this lawsuit on a side note, so you guys correct me in the comments. Anyways, vitriolic and incendiary diss tracks, sometimes responding within hours of each other. Drake encouraged the feud. For example, when he felt that Kendrick was taking too long to respond, Drake released a second recording in which he goaded Kendrick to continue the public rap battle. They're talking about Taylor Made. Kendrick did just that, and collectively, Drake and Kendrick released a total of 9 tracks taking aim at each other. On a side note, it's pretty crazy that we got like an album's worth of diss tracks in the span of damn near a week. Drop a like just for that fact. They continue on. Multiple commentators declared Kendrick to be the quote-unquote winner of the battle. Not Like Us, the penultimate track in the feud, is the subject of the complaint. The record and music video were released by Kendrick through defendant UMG on May 4th, 2024. It was a massive commercial and artistic success, winning the Grammy. The accompanying music video also winning a Grammy. The song won the Song of the Year at the Grammys and has become a ubiquitous cultural phenomenon. Among other things, Kendrick performed the song at the Super Bowl to a record audience, and Saturday Night Live parodied it in their recent 50th anniversary special. I don't know why they feel it's necessary to mention that, but yeah, the song is damn near song of the century. But they continue, not like us, like all the recordings in the beef between Drake and Kendrick, and like the many notorious diss tracks throughout rap's history, consist of a series of hyperbolic insults. Basically, UMG is stating that the insults in both their diss tracks were very exaggerated, just like how they are in most rap beefs. They continue, Drake has been pleased to use UMG's platform to promote tracks leveling similar incendiary attacks at Kendrick, including, most significantly, that Kendrick engaged in domestic abuse and that one of Kendrick's business partners and managers is the true father of Lamar's son. This is exactly what we've been saying since the day that Drake has filed the lawsuit, right? How's he gonna sue UMG for publishing and promoting Not Like Us when they also published and promoted Family Matters, which also contained allegations that Drake made against Kendrick? It's hypocritical. But on a side note, I just did a full breakdown of basically every Kendrick album to answer the question of whether or not he is a hypocrite within his music and the ever contradicting evolution of his characters. So you guys should definitely check it out if you want a detailed breakdown of the evolution of Kendrick Lamar. I'll leave it in the description of this video. But yeah, UMG is pointing out the hypocrisy of Drake suing after he also made allegations and used their resources, the same ones that Kendrick used, to, just like Kendrick, also spread allegations against his opponent. And they continue, now, after losing the rap battle, Drake claims that Not Like Us is defamatory. It is not. While the complaint focuses almost entirely on Not Like Us, it disregards the other Drake and Lamar diss tracks that surrounded Not Like Us, as well as the conventions of the diss track genre, and thus critically ignores the context of the dispute. Assessed in context, as it must be, Not Like Us clearly conveys non-actionable opinion and rhetorical hyperbole. Diss tracks are a popular and celebrated art form centered around outrageous insults, and they would be severely chilled if Drake's suit were permitted to proceed. Basically stating, again, like we've all been stating, if Drake's lawsuit is allowed to actually make it to court and he actually ends up winning, it sets the precedent for diss tracks in the future that artists will now be restricted in what they could say, which is horrible for the art form and for hip-hop and music as a whole. It limits creative expression. Drake also alleges that Not Like Us constitutes second-degree harassment, but sues under a criminal statute that does not prescribe speech and has no private right of action. Essentially, UMG here is arguing that Drake is suing for second-degree harassment, but second-degree harassment does not pertain to speech, and having no private right of action means that essentially if he wanted to sue for second-degree harassment, I believe he would have to take it to criminal court and can't file a civil lawsuit like he is. UMG also says that Drake claims that UMG's promotion of Not Like Us violates New York General Business Law 349, but fails to allege any of the elements for that claim. AKA, you haven't provided us enough necessary details to support your claims. Like Drake said in Family Matters, UMG is telling the same thing to him. You're digging for dirt, should be digging for proof. Anyways, let's continue. They say, notably, less than 3 years ago, Drake himself signed a public petition criticizing the quote-unquote trend of prosecutors using artists' creative expression against them by treating rap lyrics as literal fact. As Drake recognized, when it comes to rap, quote-unquote, the final work is a product of the artist's vision and imagination. Drake was right then and is wrong now. And just on a side note, it's interesting, right? Because he was also protesting for the freedom of Young Thug, who was on trial for a RICO case, and a lot of his lyrics within his music were used against him. Drake was very vocal in how he felt like Thug deserved to be free and the circumstances he was under not being fair, but now he's going on to do the same thing that Young Thug's prosecutors did to him by using rap lyrics in a court of law. And UMG was even saying, look, 3 years ago, Drake signed a petition protesting prosecutors using artists' music and lyrics against them, but now he's going on to do the exact same thing. So they emphasize Drake was right then, but he's wrong now. The complaint's unjustified claims against UMG are no more than Drake's attempt to save face for his unsuccessful rap battle with Lamar. The court should grant UMG's motion and dismiss the complaint with prejudice. Basically, UMG telling the court, Drake is just salty he lost this beef. That's why he's suing, and that's why you should be dismissing this case. So then they start giving some more history on the beef. They say, not like us, the record at the center of this action was released as part of a rap beef between Kendrick and Drake. The artist's feud reportedly traces its origins back more than a decade, but broke into the public domain in early 2024 when Drake and Kendrick began, quote-unquote, trading diss tracks sometimes within the same hour. Kendrick and Drake's feud was not unique in the rap world. Rap feuds where artists trade diss tracks insulting each other have, quote-unquote, existed pretty much since the beginning of rap in the 1970s. A number of storied feuds have occurred throughout rap history, including the, quote-unquote, Roxanne Wars, involving Roxanne Shante and the group UTFO, as well as feuds between Nas and Jay-Z, Lil Kim, Foxy Brown, and Megan Thee Stallion and Nicki Minaj. They're literally naming rap beefs dating all the way back to the frickin' 1970s. Then they start diving into some of Drake's own rap beefs. But before we get into those, Labries and Gentlegrams, I gotta tell you guys about something that, unlike Drake, a bunch of you guys have been telling me you've been Anita Max winning some free cash from playing mobile games. So I want to put all you guys on to something that almost seems too good to be true, alright? Let me give you a little glimpse into my life. When I'm not making this content for you guys, I have a disgusting addiction to my phone. My daily screen time is higher than Drake on that album cover, higher than Snoop off the edibles. So if you guys suffer that same addiction as me, I want to put you onto something that's going to change your life. FreeCash.com is a program that partners with mobile games that are looking for more users to play their games, and they will literally pay you to play their games for free. All you got to do is sign up using the QR code you see on the screen or using the link in the description of this video. You make an account super easy. All you got to do is put in your email, create a password, verify your email, and then you're good to go. And they got a bunch of games. My favorite is the Monopoly Go because we're always on the go trying to make some money. Once you make an account, you just click the game you want to play, follow the directions that they give you. The directions are super easy. Usually you just got to download the game and start playing. So it's about time you put that phone addiction to good use. Again, use the QR code you see on the screen or the link in my description. Create an account and you could start making more than $150 just to play a game on your phone. So here's where it gets interesting. Here's where the clowning gets taken up a notch by UMG against Drake as they start talking about Drake's beef, stating Drake is a prolific rap feud combatant, having traded diss tracks with a number of artists including Pusha T and Meek Mill. He's no stranger to the beef, and the public feud between Drake and Kendrick traces back to October 2023 with First Person Shooter, in which J. Cole rapped that he, Drake, and Kendrick were the quote-unquote Big Three. And on a side note, did you ever think you'd see the day where the words Big Three, Drake, Kendrick, and Cole would be mentioned in a lawsuit like this? They continue stating that Kendrick responded obviously with Like That, where he said, F the Big Three, it's just Big Me. Then Drake went in with Push-Ups, and they quote some lyrics from the song stating, the record takes aim at Kendrick insulting his height, how the F you big steppin' with a size 7 men's on, and Pip Squeak pipe down, you ain't in no Big Three, and his career, your first number one I had to put in your hand, your last one bricked, you're really not on nothing, and I'm on top of the mountain just to have this talk with you. I had to hike down. He also encouraged the feud, stating, and that effing song y'all got did not start the beef with us. This stuff been brewing in a pot. Now I'm heating up. He most definitely did encourage the feud. Then, simply impatient with the time it was taking Kendrick to respond, Drake released Tailor-Made Freestyle on Instagram. The record uses AI to make it sound as if the voices of deceased rap icon Tupac and rapper Snoop Dogg are rapping Drake's lyrics. In their voices, Drake taunts Kendrick for his delay. More notably, for present purposes, Drake urges Kendrick in the voice of Tupac to, quote-unquote, talk about Drake liking young girls on Lamar's next track. And there you have it, folks. The number one thing that I believe will make this case crumble is the fact that Drake, in his own diss tracks where he's defaming Kendrick's character, doing the same thing he's mad at Kendrick for doing, he also handed Kendrick the insult of him being a PDF on a silver platter. How are you going to sue for defamation when you were the first one to bring up this defamatory insult in the first place? And they go on to emphasize how much Drake was trying to taunt Kendrick into dropping, especially on Tailor Made. This was, again, at the height right before Euphoria dropped. Drake thought he had the lead. Kendrick was silent. Drake took that silence for weakness and was rapping stuff on this track like they quote in this document, saying, from Snoop's perspective, You got to show this effing owl who's boss on the West. Now's the time to really make a power move, because right now it's looking like you're writing out the game plan on how to lose, how to bark up the wrong tree and then get your head popped in a crowded room. World is watching this chess game, but are you out of moves? And then Drake turns to his own voice and raps, since like that, your tone changed a little, you're not as enthused. How the F are you not in the booth? It feels like you're kind of removed. You trying to let this die down? Nah. The famous lines, not this time, you're following through. I guess we gotta wait another week to figure out how to improve. What the F is taking so long? We're waiting on you. Then Kendrick obviously responded with Euphoria and 616, where Kendrick raps of Drake and Euphoria saying, the famous actor we knew is looking paranoid and spiraling and a pathetic master manipulator. I can smell the tails on you now. You're not a rap artist, you're a scam artist with the hopes of being accepted. They're really making Drake relive every creepy moment before the final blow, detail by detail, lyric by lyric in this lawsuit. It's beautiful. And you'll see later on, like, they're constantly frying him in this whole document. Like, really just emphasizing that Drake, buddy, you effed around and you found out. Case dismissed. They keep going, saying that Kendrick criticizes Drake's music by rapping, I make music that electrifies him, you make music that pacifies him. He attacks Drake's usage of Tupac's voice on Tailor-Made Freestyle by saying, I'm ready to double the wage. I'd rather do that than let a Canadian guy make Pac turn in his grave. He attacks his parenting, saying, I got a son to raise, but I could see I don't know nothing about that. And he insults his character and racial identity, saying, I hate the way you walk, the way you talk, how many more black features till you finally feel you're black enough. They continue quoting various bars throughout the diss tracks. I'm not really sure how this necessarily helps their case, because they're not explicitly stating the bars where they throw accusations against each other, but I guess that's what Euphoria and 616 were. They were the warning shots. There was no real allegations in those. Push-ups, there were, very few. But then they go into, the real meat and potatoes of the whole thing, saying Drake responded approximately 14 hours later with the track Family Matters. And on another side note, remember how, one of the big OVO criticisms of Kendrick was the fact that they were saying, oh, he had these diss records already written. These weren't written in the moment. What do you have to say about Drake literally previewing Family Matters on push-ups, letting the world know that he already had this track written before he dropped it, and he still took multiple days to drop it after Euphoria and 616 were released? Hypocrisy all around. But anyways, they continue saying Family Matters was distributed by UMG. The track is a scathing attack on Kendrick, laden with hyperbolic slurs. Drake attacks, amongst other things, Kendrick's authenticity, rapping, you're just acting like an activist, it's make-believe. He mocks his height, saying he always said I overlooked him, I was staring straight. These bars go over Kenny's head no matter what I say. I mean, he is the short-statured, sharpshooting assassin after all. He also states that Kendrick cheats on his fiancée, saying, why did you move to New York? Is it because you're living that bachelor life? Proposed in 2015 but don't want to make her your actual wife, etc., etc. And he asserts that one of Kendrick's children was fathered by one of his business partners and managers, Dave Freeze. Your baby mama caption's always screaming, save me. You did her dirty all your life. You're trying to make peace. I heard that one of them little kids might be Dave Freeze. Don't make it Dave Freeze, because if your GM is your BM secret BD, then this is all making plenty sense to me. And it's so funny because if Drake had it his way, this would be the hit of the battle. Everyone would be saying Dave Free instead of A minor, and like Drake would be blasting that all over the Super Bowl stage, defaming Kendrick's name. He'd be doing the exact same thing if the roles were reversed. That's what makes this lawsuit so ridiculous. But anyways, they continue saying Drake also raps that Kendrick physically abuses his fiance, stating, when you put your hands on your girl, is it self-defense because she's bigger than you? They hired a crisis management team to clean up the fact that you beat your queen. The recording also makes various other allusions to violence, including gun violence. And this is interesting because a big part of Drake's lawsuit was the fact that he felt like Not Like Us alluded to violence, and that's why his house was hit with a firearm just days later, and he felt like that song was a direct impact on the safety of his life. Meanwhile, Family Matters is full of, like they said in this lawsuit, calls to violence, where Drake opens that he has emptied the clip over friendlier jabs. Which one of my so-called guys need a shell from the clip? Come get this butt whooping, I'm handing them out. You're dead, you're dead, you're dead. There's nowhere to hide, etc. And then Kendrick responded, 2 more back-to-back tracks, Meet the Grams, followed by Not Like Us. Meet the Grams, released approximately 30 minutes after Family Matters. Kendrick directs his insults to various members of Drake's immediate family and to Drake himself. Not Like Us was released on May 4th. Like the diss tracks before it, Not Like Us consist of hyperbolic insults, which means like exaggerated insults. Kendrick calls Drake names, why you trolling like a B-word, ain't you tired, and it was God's plan to show you the liar. He mocks Drake's OVO brand and image, saying what OVO for, the other V option. What's the owl for, bird bees and bird guys. makes hyperbolic threats of violence, saying, you think the Bay gonna let you disrespect Pac? I think that Oakland show gonna be your last stop. So they're emphasizing that on both Family Matters and Not Like Us, there were allusions or hyperbolic bars about violence. They were both exaggerated bars generally about violence. It wasn't just on Kendrick's side, it was on Drake's side with Family Matters as well. Then they talk about how Not Like Us attacks Drake's personal relationships, including alleging that Drake had relations with Lil Wayne's girlfriend, saying effed on Wayne's girl while he was in jail, that's conniving, and calls him a colonizer, inferring Drake exploits other artists for fame and financial benefit. Now, here's where it gets interesting. They say, taking up Drake's invitation in Tailor-Made Freestyle to quote-unquote talk about him liking young girls, Kendrick also makes various statements at issue in the complaint, including, say Drake, I hear you like him young, you better not ever go to cell block 1, to any girl that talked to him and they in love, just make sure you hide your little sister from them, and why you trolling like a B-word, ain't you tired? Trying to strike a chord and it's probably a minor. He also raps, and Baka got a weird case, why is he around? Certified lover boy, certified PDF, and states your homeboy needs subpoena, that predator moving flocks, that name gotta be registered, placed on neighborhood watch. So basically again stating that Kendrick was just feeding into the narrative that Drake already painted on Tailor-Made. And then they say Drake responded the following day with the Heart Part 6. There, Drake doubles down on his statement that one of Lamar's children was fathered by Dave Free, saying, why isn't Whitney denying all the allegations? Why is she following Dave Free and not Mr. Morale? And on a side note, what a ridiculous bar. Like, Kendrick shows you he's extremely inactive on social media. The ironic thing is that if you look at his social media, it's all just links to his diss tracks and Super Bowl announcement. Why do you think that the state of his relationship with his fiance is based off his Instagram activity? It's just ridiculous. Also saying Dave leaving heart emojis underneath pics of the child, and like if Dave really slept with your girl and got her pregnant, talking about breed and resentment. And he reiterates his claims of domestic abuse, saying, I don't want to fight with a W beater, it feeds your nature. And Drake also states that he expected the alleged defamatory statements in Not Like Us, saying, this Epstein angle was the stuff I expected, TikTok videos you collected and dissected. And he also denies them, saying, only effing with Whitney's, not Millie Bobby Brown's. I'd never look twice at a teenager. The track also contains further references to violence, including hitting throats with a razor and bullets that I'm stuffing in each chamber. Your butt is in extreme danger. Basically, the point UMG is trying to make here is that how can these lyrics be worthy of a defamation lawsuit when you openly admitted in your own diss tracks that not only did you expect these allegations to be made, but you also encouraged them to be made before they ever even were made? And how could you sue us for publishing a song where you claim was inciting violence against you when in songs that we published on your accord, we're also using lyrics that incited violence against Kendrick? Now, here's where it gets hilarious, because they really had to rub it in Drake's face that Kendrick brutally won this beef, and that's why he is now suing, saying Kendrick is widely perceived to have won the rap feud. Also, there's footnotes at the bottom of each page, and this one says that Baka in Drake's song refers to the OVO member Baka Not Nice, who was arrested in 2014 on human trafficking and assault charges and convicted of assault in 2015. And in order to prove that the internet basically dubbed Kendrick the winner, they cite a New Yorker article that's titled, Has There Ever Been a Clearer Loser Than Drake? They go on to say, Not Like Us has also been a massive commercial and artistic success. It's been heard or viewed nearly 6 billion times and was the best-selling rap song of 2024. It set multiple records, including most single-day streams for a rap song in the US, the fastest song to reach 300 million streams on Spotify, the most streamed song in a 7-day period, with 96 million streams, and within the first week of its release, Not Like Us debuted at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 list and ranked first on YouTube's top weekly music videos chart from July 4th to August 8th. It has maintained its popularity. On October 7th, Billboard reported that the record had achieved 45.4 million streams in total audiences impressions on radio, and it's been also used over 1.3 million videos on TikTok. Rolling Stone deemed it the biggest moment in music of 2024, and the song, recording, and video of Not Like Us were collectively nominated for 5 Grammy Awards, as voted on by over 13,000 music industry peers, including Record of the Year, Song of the Year, Best Rap Performance, Best Rap Song, and Best Rap Music Video, and won in all 5 categories. Then they get into what actually decides whether or not a lawsuit is being worthy of being dismissed, specifically a defamation case, stating that to survive a motion to dismiss under Rule 12, A complaint must plead enough facts to state a claim to relief that is plausible on its face. The court can credit only well-pleaded, non-conclusory factual allegations and must disregard legal conclusions. Courts in this district have observed that there is particular value in resolving defamation claims at the pleading stage so as to not protract litigation through discovery and trial and thereby chill the exercise of constitutionally protected freedoms. That is, in defamation cases, Rule 12b6 not only protects against the cost of meritless litigation, but provides assurance to those exercising their First Amendment rights that doing so will not needlessly become prohibitively expensive. Essentially, if I understood this correctly, stating that defamation cases are usually resolved before they go to trial to save the person who's exercising their First Amendment rights, aka their free speech, saving them the time and money of taking it to court. Because obviously the one who is protecting their First Amendment right is the one who's accused of defamation, but there's obviously a very nuanced fine line between what's counted as defamation and what's simply free speech. It's funny because in this case, usually you wouldn't root for the giant mega corporation, you'd root for the artist. But in this case, UMG is the one who's actually trying to protect and defend free speech. They go back to Drake saying Drake fails to state a claim for defamation. Drake, who had no concerns using UMG's platform to publish slurs about Kendrick during their rap feud, now claims that Not Like Us is defamatory. These allegations, which are directly aimed at chilling legitimate artistic expression safeguarded by the First Amendment and New York law, are meritless. Drake fails to state a claim for defamation because Not Like Us conveys non-actionable opinion and rhetorical hyperbole, not fact, and because Drake cannot adequately allege that UMG acted with actual malice. Essentially stating that Drake had no problem using UMG's publishing and resources to publish his own diss songs against Kendrick, now has a problem with Not Like Us, but he's taking direct aim at artistic expression, which should be safeguarded, and therefore his claims for defamation are meritless because he's suing over bars in Not Like Us that they claim are non-actionable opinion and rhetorical hyperbole, not actual facts. They continue stating, to succeed on his defamation claim, Drake must establish either 1, a defamatory statement of and concerning the plaintiff, publication to a third party, falsity of the defamatory statement, and finally, special damages or per se actionability. Whereas here, the plaintiff is a public figure, aka Drake is a public figure, he must prove that the allegedly defamatory statement was made with actual malice, that is, made with knowledge of its falsity or with reckless disregard of whether it was false. Basically, if Kendrick is going to call Drake a PDF, for it to be considered defamatory, Kendrick would have had to know that it was factually false. It can't just be your opinion. And they say to be defamatory, a publication must convey fact, not opinion or rhetorical hyperbole. Expressions of opinion as opposed to assertions of fact are deemed privileged and, no matter how offensive, cannot be the subject of an act of defamation. Whether a statement is fact or opinion is quote-unquote a question of law for the court, and to distinguish assertions of facts from non-actionable opinions, New York courts analyze number 1, whether the specific language in issue has a precise meaning which is readily understood. Number 2, whether the statements are capable of being true or false, so actually being able to prove Drake being a PDF is either true or false. And number 3, whether either the full context of the communication in which the statement appears or the broader social context and surrounding circumstances are such as to signal readers or listeners that what is being read or heard is likely to be opinion, not fact. Basically, in order for it to be defamatory, the person who's saying it has to be saying it as if it's a fact and not simply an opinion or hyperbole. And they give various examples of what wouldn't be considered a fact, where a statement invokes parody, loose or figurative language. Tone may indicate non-actionable opinion where it reflects a degree of anger or resentment, where the tenor is rambling, heated, or speculative, or often escalates into the hyperbolic. And I'm no lawyer, but from the little bit of legal background that I know, a lot of these cases, decisions are made based off precedent, right? Like if you had a situation that was somewhat similar to the situation that's going on right now, in court, they could use that to be like, look what happened in that situation. That can reflect the decision we make in this situation. So they use the case of the public figure Michael Rappaport versus Barstool Sports to emphasize that this defamation case with Drake and Kendrick should be thrown out. They say, There, the actor Michael Rappaport alleged that statements made by Barstool Sports accusing him of having herpes and abusing his ex-girlfriend, including several statements in a 6-minute quote-unquote diss track in which defendants rapped about a constant stream of insults and slurs about Rappaport against a backdrop of unflattering video clips and images. He claims they were defamatory, but the district court rejected the claim as a matter of law, saying the statements were largely laden with epithets, I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce that, vulgarities, hyperbole, and non-literal language and imagery delivered in the midst of a public and very acrimonious dispute between the Barstool defendants and Rappaport that would have been obvious to even the most casual observer and published on social media, blogs, and sports talk radio, which are all platforms where audiences reasonably anticipate hearing opinionated statements, basically stating that Barstool Sports is where that diss track was published, which is where people expect to hear opinions, not fact, because it's a platform hosting, radio shows, podcasts, blogs, etc. And basically, again, like Drake, Rappaport was involving himself in this back and forth, which featured a slew of different vulgarities exchanged back and forth. So it was obvious to the viewers that this was just a case of a dispute between Barstool and Michael Rappaport, and for that reason, it can't be looked at as actually defamatory because it was just Barstool's opinion throughout an ongoing beef with Rappaport, who actively participated in it, stating the district court appropriately considered that the statements at issues were made in the context of a hostile, vulgar, hyperbolic feud, in which the use of these vulgarities function as a strong indicator to the reasonable reader that the statement is not expressing or implying any facts. These conclusions apply equally in this Drake versus Kendrick case. Considered in context as it is required, Not Like Us conveys hyperbole and opinion, not facts. Looking first to its tone, the rap diss track consists of a series of epithets, fiery rhetoric, and hyperbole, endemic to the rap genre. Not surprisingly, given the context, the recording reflects a considerable degree of anger and resentment, and exaggerated, vitriolic words pervade the recording to attack all aspects of Drake's life, including his career, authenticity, brand relationships, and character. Exaggerated imagery in the music video reinforces that Not Like Us is not intended to reflect factual analysis. For example, the video opens with Lamar whispering to a clown that he quote-unquote sees dead people, a nod to the film The Sixth Sense, implying hyperbolically that Drake has been defeated in the rap battle. The video also shows Lamar beating an owl piñata with the disclaimer, "No OV hoes were harmed during the making of this video," and staring down an owl cage. Again, crazy that all this needs to be included in a frickin' lawsuit. Like, to sue over a rap beef is insane. But they continue. This imagery reinforces the non-factual nature of Not Like Us. Indeed, no reasonable listener would require a disclaimer that the piñata is not literally Drake and his crew. The imagery is satirical and vitriolic, all of which signals to the audience that the video does not convey sober factual analysis. Basically saying like all this imagery was for a joke and the audience was obviously able to tell that. But then they continue with the album cover, and this is the only part where I think Drake may have the upper hand, where they say, just like the music video, the album image of Drake's Toronto house is quote-unquote obviously doctored, further underscoring the non-factual nature of Not Like Us. Again, no reasonable viewer would believe that the image of Drake's Toronto mansion with 13 S offender markers is real. The image is hyperbolic and exaggerated, conveying opinion, not fact. Obviously, they're referencing the cover art to Not Like Us, which is a picture of Drake's home with a bunch of pins on it, and those pins are meant to represent, when you look online, different neighborhoods, and you see those pins, the ones that are on that album cover, it's meant to say that an S offender lives in that house. They're saying in this lawsuit that, putting those pins, the audience obviously knows it's a joke, it's exaggerated. And while I do believe that to be true, the same can be said, it's factually there, right? So that's not like a rap lyric that can be interpreted as fact or opinion. This is just a literal image which can really only be interpreted one way. Whether you want to take it as fact or opinion is kind of subjective. I don't know how you would prove that in court. But they continue saying, the broader context also reinforces that Not Like Us is non-actionable. Not Like Us did not emerge out of thin air. It was Lamar's culminating diss track in one of the nastiest lyrical warfare rap feuds in recent history. It followed the release of 7 preceding tracks in which Drake and Lamar hurled increasingly vitriolic allegations at each other, including Drake's slurs that Lamar's son was fathered by someone else and that Lamar cheats on his physically abused fiance. If there was ever circumstance for the audience to quote-unquote anticipate the use of epithets, fiery rhetoric, or hyperbole, this is it. Moreover, assessment of the broader context makes clear that Not Like Us relates to well-known controversies that Drake himself acknowledged and perpetuated. Now, this is where it gets funny again. Facts and criticism concerning Drake's relationship with minors predate Not Like Us and have been wildly reported. And to prove that it's been wildly reported before Not Like Us ever existed, they used as a source this news article which covers a video of adult Drake kissing and fondling a chord A minor at a concert. They also cite another news article covering criticism of an adult Drake's quote-unquote friendship with Millie Bobby Brown when the latter was 14. And this is what I meant by Drake's just opening a nasty can of worms by, trying to pursue this lawsuit in the first case, because obviously UMG is going to come in with all the receipts of everything we've seen online for years and years now. And in order to prove their innocence in the fact that, these rumors have been around forever, they're going to have to prove that, people have been talking about Drake being a PDF long before Not Like Us was ever released, which is only going to make things look way worse for Drake. They continue saying facts and criticism concerning Drake's relationships with minors predate Not Like Us and have been wildly reported, noting that Kendrick is indicating Drake for years of rumors and speculation around his misbehavior around minors, and that Millie Bobby Brown is one of the things that most people are aware of when it comes to Drake and the rumors around him. She talked about texting with Drake when she was, a minor. Notably, Drake himself called on Lamar to invoke these allegations in Tailor Made, which was released before Not Like Us, in which he had Tupac's AI-generated voice rap that Kendrick should talk about Drake liking them young. In Heart Part 6, Drake also affirmed that he understood Kendrick's statements in Not Like Us to refer to the Millie Bobby Brown controversy, stating that this Epstein angle was the stuff I expected, only effing with Whitney's, not Millie Bobby Brown's. I'd never look twice at a teenager. Clearly, Drake himself understands that Kendrick's lyrics refer solely to well-known issues. Taken together with the fact that Not Like Us was released in the context of a combative and vitriolic rap diss battle, it would be quote-unquote obvious to even the most casual observer that Not Like Us is not, quote-unquote, an accurate factual assessment offered by a disinterested observer. In sum, the tone and broader context in which Not Like Us was released makes plain that the recording, video, and album cover convey rhetorical hyperbole and opinion not based on anything beyond controversies that have been wildly acknowledged, including by Drake himself. Drake fails to state an actionable claim for defamation, basically emphasizing the fact that Drake was well aware that there was already these public criticisms about his weird interactions with Millie Bobby Brown, or that weird stuff he did on stage with the A minor. And because these controversies were even acknowledged by Drake even before Not Like Us was released, he has no actionable claim for defamation. They continue stating that Drake's defamation claim fails for the independent reason that, as a matter of law, he cannot allege that UMG acted with actual malice. A public figure can only prevail on a defamation claim where, quote-unquote, clear and convincing evidence proves that a false and defamatory statement was published with actual malice. That is, quote-unquote, with deliberate or reckless falsification. The element of actual malice in a defamation claim focuses primarily on what a defendant knew or believed at the time that a purposely false statement was made. There is no basis for a claim that any person at UMG had the subjective intent to publish false factual statements about Drake. UMG released a rap diss track conveying fury, rhetoric, and insults, not factual assessments, much less false ones. UMG engaged in the same conduct when it distributed Drake's Family Matters, in which Drake rapped that Lamar engages in domestic abuse and is not the father of his son. Much like parody and satire, hyperbole, exaggeration, and insults are endemic in rap, particularly in diss tracks. Rappers know that their lyrics are exaggerated and non-factual. That is part of the craft. The actual malice question is therefore what UMG intended to convey, and Drake has not alleged any specific facts plausibly evidencing in a clear and convincing manner that anyone at UMG intended to convey or indeed believed that the public would understand Not Like Us as conveying anything other than what it was, an incendiary diss track. Basically, UMG is stating here that Drake has no actual proof that we released this song thinking that it was anything more than just a diss track. Drake further asserts a criminal claim for quote-unquote harassment in the second degree on the theory that Kendrick Lamar issued a call to violence against Drake in Not Like Us with quote-unquote threats of violence, and that the song thus amounts to incitement. This claim fails for multiple reasons. First, there is no private right of action, where a penal statute does not expressly confer a private right of action on individuals pursuing civil relief. Recovery under such a statute may be had only if a private right of action may fairly be implied. This requires considering whether creation of such a right would be consistent with the legislative scheme, which is not the case when there are quote-unquote alternative enforcement mechanisms. On a side note, they didn't mention this here, but if Drake wants to claim that this song was a call to violence, what about way back in 2018 where he rapped on Sicko Mode saying, crept down the block, made a right, cut the lights, paid the price, clearly referencing Kanye West and Kim Kardashian's Calabasas house, which Drake lived right up the block for, which Kanye then went on Instagram to publicly emphasize that he felt threatened by. These were clear calls to violence too, but they were done in a diss track. Non-factual, like UMG is stating, that Not Like Us was as well, and Kendrick made no real threat to Drake's safety the same way Drake did to Kanye on Sicko Mode. They continue saying, even if this statute did have a private right of action, the harassment claim would fail. The statute requires that UMG act with quote-unquote intent to harass, annoy, or alarm Drake. But at most, Drake merely asserts an intent to quote-unquote devalue Drake's music and brand in order to gain leverage in negotiations, which is not an intent to harass Drake. Basically saying that in Drake's own lawsuit, he was saying that UMG didn't act with intent to harass or, cause harm to Drake's safety, but he says that UMG only acted to devalue Drake's music and his brand because they had upcoming contract negotiations. So even Drake himself in his own lawsuit is not coming with concrete enough evidence to show that UMG was trying to harm his safety. And regardless, these allegations that Drake believes UMG was trying to devalue Drake's brand with Not Like Us for their contract negotiations, it's all speculative, conclusory, and illogical. Drake does not even attempt to explain how a contract with Drake would be more profitable for UMG if Drake was quote-unquote devalued. After all, any decreased quote-unquote leverage would presumably come from decreased revenues and thus decreased profits. Moreover, Drake's allegations are contradicted by his allegations that UMG had the opposite incentive with respect to re-signing Lamar. And this is exactly what I said when I broke the full lawsuit down for you guys. Logically, it makes no sense for UMG to try and devalue Drake's brand if they're trying to sign him back to another contract, because that would be their asset. If their asset, aka Drake, is devalued, it means UMG as a company makes less money. If Drake is more popular and more beloved than ever, then his catalog, his music, will get streamed more. He'll be able to tour more or do more movie appearances or have his music in movies and be able to be licensed more globally. UMG would greatly benefit off that. Them trying to devalue him as an artist would only hurt their own profits. So there's no logic to it. Next, even if Drake could surmount these obstacles, his claim would still fail because he cannot meet the constitutional test for incitement in any event. Under the First Amendment, incitement can be prescribed only where the speech is quote-unquote directed to inciting or producing imminent lawless action and is likely to incite or produce such actions. There are two requirements. The speech must be both intended to produce and likely to produce imminent disorder. Neither is satisfied. First, even accepting Drake's nonsensical theory that UMG wanted to devalue his brand, Drake never alleged that UMG specifically intended to cause violence against him, and any such allegation would be utterly implausible. Second, the lyrics of Not Like Us are not quote-unquote likely to incite or produce imminent lawless action. It's a rap diss track. Drake attempts to contort violent metaphors in the lyrics into incitement. Basically, he's trying to flip the narrative that any violent bars from Kendrick on the song are a direct call to action to the audience to invite violence onto Drake. And they quote some of the lyrics saying, like the sound of someone being beaten up, the recording repeats, wop, 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 wop. And then Kendrick says he will F them up. But as explained above, hyperbolic and metaphorical language is par for the course in diss tracks. Indeed, Drake's own diss tracks employed imagery at least as violent, such as firearm sounds and lyrics like, you're dead, you're dead, you're dead, there's nowhere to hide, and I'll hit you with the razor, and yeah, bullets that I'm stuffing in each chamber, you're in extreme danger. In short, as with his defamation claim, Drake seeks to chill a form of artistic expression that he himself has embraced. Courts have rejected far stronger claims of imminent lawless action than rap diss track lyrics. Basically, courts have dismissed a lot worse than all these bars in these diss tracks. Finally, Drake fails to allege, because he cannot, that UMG acted with no legitimate purpose in publishing and promoting Not Like Us. Drake expressly alleged that UMG's motives with respect to Not Like Us were financial. Seemingly recognizing this deficiency, Drake alleged that, quote-unquote, while its initial motive was financial, UMG lost any legitimate purpose to continue its course of conduct in the face of Drake's public and private denials. But this a cursory legal conclusion, Drake's denials about the song having nothing to do with whether UMG's motivations were solely to hound, frighten, intimidate, or threaten, which by Drake's own admission, they were not. Basically, because in Drake's lawsuit, he emphasized that UMG was acting purely out of financial gain by publishing Not Like Us, it then contradicts his statements made that UMG was publishing Not Like Us to incite violence on Drake. It's a contradictory because, no, he clearly expressed that they published the song for financial gain. Finally, Drake purports to bring a claim under New York General Business Law 349, which he asserts UMG violated by, quote-unquote, covertly financially incentivizing third parties to play, stream, and promote the recording, and then by making materially false and misleading representations of the recording's popularity to consumers. Essentially, this is where he claims that they, botted the streams. These allegations are entirely bogus, but in all events fail to state a claim. Basically, again, Drake was digging for dirt. He should have been digging for proof. The centerpiece of this claim was the utterly false assertion that UMG, quote-unquote, used bots to stream Not Like Us. Drake based this theory on the claim that an anonymous individual alleged on a Twitch stream with Akademiks that Kendrick's label, Interscope, paid him via third parties to use bots to achieve 30 million streams on Spotify in the initial days following the Not Like Us release. But this claim is then directly refuted by the very source that Drake cites. In the Twitch stream, the anonymous speaker, already a dubious source, claims that he was hired by Anthony Saleh, who is, quote-unquote, Kendrick's manager. UMG and Interscope are never accused. Basically, the guy on Akademiks stream who said that he was paid to bot Not Like Us, he said he was paid by Kendrick's manager, Anthony Saleh, not Kendrick's record labels UMG or Interscope. Critically, after UMG notified Drake's counsel of the falsity of Drake's allegations via a Rule 11 letter and accompanying Rule 11 motion, Drake conceded the falsity and, quote-unquote, agreed to, quote-unquote, withdraw and correct the meritless allegations. Basically, Drake was going to withdraw that source and the botting allegations from the lawsuit, but then despite this concession, Drake has refused to actually amend the complaint to withdraw the admittedly false allegation until after UMG files this motion to dismiss. Basically saying that until UMG filed this document that we're reading right now to request that the judge dismisses this case, Drake refuses to withdraw any of the sources or allegations he made in his initial lawsuit, even though he openly admitted that if they weren't false, they weren't at the very least directed at UMG. It was Anthony Saleh, Kendrick's manager, who these allegations were made against. What is left of the 349 claim after subtracting the bogus stream manipulation theory is equally spurious. As an initial matter, all of the remaining allegations are made on an information and belief without stating the basis therefore. Drake has also received information that UMG engaged in a classic pay-for-play scheme by paying to increase the airplay of the recording on radio. On information and belief, UMG employed a similar scheme by paying social media influencers to promote and endorse the recording and video. These are quotes from Drake's lawsuit. This, of course, improper pleading and warrants dismissal because he's saying on information and belief. He's not actually stating allegations of fact. There's no actual proof to support these claims. It's all off information and belief. And they emphasize that information and belief allegations must be accompanied by a statement of the facts upon which the belief is founded and cannot rest on pure conjecture and speculation. Moreover, 349 requires a plaintiff to allege that he, quote-unquote, suffered an injury as a result of the deception. Drake does not assert that any of UMG's other supposedly deceptive conduct injured him, save for the putative misstatements concerning the popularity of Not Like Us on the radio. Basically stating that aside from the popularity of Not Like Us on the radio, there's no claims in Drake's lawsuit that show UMG was actually injuring him. The only reason why Not Like Us's popularity on the radio is an injury to Drake is because indirectly when Not Like Us is played, Drake loses the opportunity for one of his songs to be played on the radio during that time slot. But those allegations are insufficient. Firstly, there is no quote-unquote consumer-oriented conduct. The deceptive act that Drake alleges is that UMG marketed the record as a chart-topping hit despite knowing that it had paid third parties, including radio stations, to play and promote the recording. But his complaint alleges only that UMG marketed Not Like Us as chart-topping on its website for licensing on television and in film. Statements aimed at the television and film industry concerning licensing rather than consumers are not consumer-oriented conduct. Basically, when they were licensing Not Like Us on their website to be used in different movies, they labeled it as a chart-topping hit, which wouldn't be classified as consumer-oriented conduct because it's not the actual listener that's being marketed towards. It's movies that are looking to license the song. And on a side note, they also had Family Matters on their website open to be licensed. Drake received the same treatment. Second, Drake does not allege that the statement was quote-unquote deceptive or misleading in a material way. Drake never alleged, nor could he, that Not Like Us would not have been chart-topping had it not been for the alleged payment at issue, nor does he include any allegations as to why the chart-topping claim would be material in any event. Third, Drake's allegations of injury and causation are lacking. Drake's theory that, quote-unquote, every time the record was played, Drake lost the opportunity for one of his songs to be played is wildly speculative and non-cognizable. Nor does Drake allege that any lost radio opportunities were the result of any supposed UMG misstatements about the song's popularity, which means that he does not allege an injury that is, quote-unquote, a result of the deception at issue. Basically, because UMG labeled the song as a chart-topping hit, that's not enough for Drake to prove that the hit would have been a hit without UMG labeling it as a hit. And that is where it concludes. As you can see, we got a nice stroll down memory lane of this beef recited from UMG's perspective. They're essentially claiming that, Drake, you F around, you find out. You wanted this battle. You made all of these accusations against Kendrick and used our budget, our resources to promote your songs the same way he did. Your claims are baseless, and like they told him before, his issue is with Kendrick and losing the rap battle. UMG has nothing to do with it. So it'll be interesting to see if this is enough to get the case dismissed. If not, then we'll get some more updates as it gets taken to the judge on April 2nd. I'll be providing you guys with all the updates, and it's important to note that if anything actually does come of this case, this will be the first time in history that a diss song in a rap battle can be used to harm the party that actually published and promoted the music, the free speech. Drake is not saving the industry here, as he wants to make you believe. He's saving himself, and he's destroying the right to free speech if he ends up winning. Let me know what you guys think, and I will catch you in the next one.